So, what really makes a great corporate director? We see the big names sitting on these company boards, but in today's world of just constant change and pressure, what are the qualities that actually make someone successful in that seat? It's a question that goes way deeper than you might think. Let's dive in.
So think about it for a second. When you picture a successful director, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Is it the laundry list of achievements on their resume, the Ivy League degree, or maybe that incredible network they have? Well, while all those things certainly help, they're really just the tip of the iceberg. The true measure of an effective director, it lies in the stuff you just can't see on a CV. And this quote right here, it just nails it. You can have the most perfect, buttoned-up rules and structures in the world, but they're basically useless without the right people. At the end of the day, governance is all about the human beings around that table. So our first stop is to look way beyond that shiny CV. We're going to deconstruct this role and really uncover the fundamental pillars that separate a merely good director from a truly great one. And here's our roadmap for how we're going to do that. We'll look at this through three key pillars that are totally interconnected. First, there's competence, which is basically the what, the skills they need. Then we've got character, which is the how, their ethical foundation. And finally, context, the where, the whole environment they're operating in. All right, let's jump right into that first pillar, competence. What are the specific skills and personal qualities that a director absolutely has to have? Okay, so these are the fundamentals, the absolute non-negotiables. A director has to be able to think strategically, way beyond just the next quarter. They've got to truly get the company's financials, understand risk, and know the industry inside and out. You can think of these as the technical table stakes. You need them just to get in the game. But, having the technical skills is really only half the story. The things that are much harder to spot on a resume, but are arguably even more important, are these personal attributes. We're talking about real integrity, emotional intelligence, and this one is huge, the courage to actually ask the tough questions and challenge the groupthink, even when it's super uncomfortable. So that leads us perfectly into our second pillar. We're shifting gears a little bit from what a director can do to what they should do. This is all about character and that moral compass that has to guide every single decision they make. A fantastic way to think about this is through the 7 Nolan principles. Now, they were originally designed for public officials in the UK, but just look at how perfectly they apply to the corporate world. Things like integrity, accountability, and leadership. These aren't just corporate buzzwords. They are the absolute bedrock of any trustworthy system of governance. But here's the thing, and this is super important. These principles don't exist in a bubble. For a big public company, they have to be balanced with commercial needs and strategic risks. But in, say, a private family-owned business, those exact same principles get filtered through a totally different lens of legacy and family values. The core ideas are the same, but the context changes everything. And you know what? That idea of context is the perfect lead-in to our third and final pillar. A director's skills and their character have to be applied within this really complex maze of legal duties, regulations, and corporate structures. Now, at the absolute heart of all this is the concept of fiduciary duty. This isn't just a friendly suggestion, it is a director's binding legal and ethical obligation to put the company's interests above their own and everyone else's. Getting this is absolutely foundational. And flowing right out from that core duty are these specific legal responsibilities. A director has to be diligent, they have to steer clear of conflicts of interest, and they must make sure there's proper oversight of critical areas like the financials and risk. This is where that personal responsibility becomes crystal clear. And this right here, this is a point that, honestly, a lot of directors get wrong. Liability isn't just about what you do, it's also about what you fail to do. Not asking those tough questions or just blindly trusting management can have very real, very serious personal consequences. This whole context thing even gets down to the way the board is actually built. Here in the US, you're usually going to find a single or unitary board. But in a place like Germany, it's really common to have a 2-tier system with a whole separate supervisory board. For any director working in an international space, understanding this difference is just crucial to being effective. Okay, so let's tie all of this together. We've talked about competence, we've talked about character, and we've talked about context. So how do they all combine to define what a director's ultimate role really is? Well, here's the biggest takeaway. Strong governance is never, ever just about checking boxes. True effectiveness comes from that dynamic blend of all three pillars. It's about having the right skills, acting with the right character, and deeply, deeply understanding the context you're in. And when you get that blend just right, the role of a director really transforms. It goes beyond simple oversight. The ultimate goal becomes stewardship, the responsible, long-term care and nurturing of the company for everyone involved.
Which kind of leaves us with one final thought. When you look at your own organization or maybe the companies you invest in, ask yourself, is their board just built to comply with the rules? Or is it truly designed for that much higher calling of long-term stewardship? Something to think about.